So this is someone for the second video. Check the time, that's right. Someone suggested in the comment section that they wanted to know what sort of like books I read and enjoy. They also want to know what films I enjoy. In this video, I'm going to focus on books. I might talk because I generally read more than I watch films, but I might look at films in another video. On another week. So I'm going to look at the books today, the sort of books I like reading. In the previous video, I mentioned that one of my current interests, if you like, I guess you could call it a special interest. It's not like an obsession like the Kate Winslet one was, but it is a strong interest and something that I enjoy reading about, is the hippie movement and the countercultural movement from the 1960s. This is my hippie dictionary. I haven't finished reading it all yet. At the back, it's got a whole list of films and books from the time, like the countercultural movement. And as I mentioned in the previous video, I think this kind of follows this like trajectory in terms of my interest, and that a major obsession after I finished with the Kate Winslet interest, and once I devoured all these books about how to overcome anxiety, and that became an obsession for a time, like the psychoanalysis thing. And a history of mental health and how it's been treated. As I said, I became really, really, really interested in that. And that did become, for a time, it did become very, very intense. And then I became really, really interested in politics and kind of the way in which oppressed people and minorities have kind of overcome injustice through social activism and campaigning for their rights and stuff, and ideas in society and how ideas have developed and how the status quo has been challenged by alternative thinkers, and how what we think of as right and moral, or what society says is right and moral, isn't necessarily right or moral, because it's like these things aren't kind of set in stone. They're debated, and there's like constant dialectic all the way through society of people questioning what is right and what is wrong based upon their lived experience of oppression and things like that. So I've always been kind of quite questioning of authority and like not taking anything as read just because, that questioning, that deep thinking. I'm doing lots of reading around that and becoming very educated about the different, ideas in society. So I think that the current interest in countercultural movement and more kind of like philosophy does tie in with that, and I'm constantly developing my philosophical knowledge. So some of the books I've read, particularly during my politics phase, when I became very, very interested in the fight for social justice and things like that. So I'm still interested in that, It's just that this was when I became incredibly obsessed about it, and it was quite positive as well, because, as I said, it helped me feel less alone, like connected to a wider movement, and like part of a community. And I even went to Brighton. This was going back a number of years ago, but I even went to Brighton. Went with my support worker to this event in Brighton. I got. Which was great, and this is all down to my interests in politics. I wouldn't have done that otherwise. It was great. Again, the power of special interest gets you out of the house, gets you motivated to do things, So yeah, some of the books, I digress. So I read this one, Injustice, by Daniel Dorling. It says here, fewer dispute that we live in an unequal and unjust world, but what causes this inequality to persist? In a new paperback edition of this timely book, Daniel Dorling, a leading social commentator and academic, claims that in rich countries inequality is no longer caused by not having enough resources to share, but by unrecognised and unacknowledged beliefs which actually propagate it. Based on significant research across a range of fields, Dorling argues that, as the 5 social evils identified by Beveridge at the dawn of the British welfare state, ignorance, want, idleness, squalor and disease are gradually being eradicated. They are being replaced by 5 new tenets of injustice: that elitism is efficient, exclusion is necessary, prejudice is natural, greed is good, and despair is inevitable. And so it goes on. So that was a good book. I can't remember the arguments because I read it ages ago. It's quite an academic book. Now, this guy here, Erich Fromm, I highly recommend him. He's one of my best philosophers, one of my favourite philosophers, because he speaks so much sense. I've also read The Sane Society by Erich Fromm. I still need to read The Dogma of Christ by Erich Fromm. There are a few others. But yeah, I don't know what The Dogma of Christ is. It looks interesting, so I might read it one day. So yeah, this is The Fear of Freedom. Do modern men really want freedom, or are they afraid of it? Is the fear of freedom the root of the 20th century successes of one or another kind of totalitarianism? In this brilliant book, Dr. Fromm applies the psychoanalytical method to that illness of our time that expresses itself in abject submission to authority. For the rise of democracy, while setting men free, also created a society where a man feels isolated from his fellows, where relationships are impersonal, where insecurity replaces a sense of belonging. In Dr. Fromm's view, it is this sense of isolation that drives men to devotion and submission to an all-powerful organisation or state. So yeah, it's a very interesting book if you're interested in philosophy and social criticism. The other one, as I mentioned earlier, Foucault, Madness and Civilization. Don't read this before bed. It is incredibly deep. Oh my god. Some of the language used in here, don't ask. Michel Foucault, celebrated French thinker and activist who challenged people's assumptions about care for mentally ill, gay rights, prisons, the police and welfare. Very, very interesting. This is all about mental illness, this one. And this one here, don't know if anyone of you have heard of this one. It was a popular book at the time. The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein. Very good book. Really, really enjoyed this one. Ages ago since I read it, but it's a great book. Around the world, there are people with power who are cashing in on chaos, exploiting bloodshed and catastrophe to brutally remake our world in their image. They are the shock doctors. Thrilling and revelatory, the Shock Doctrine cracks open a secret history of our era. Exposing these global profiteers, Naomi Klein discovered information and connections that shocked even her about how comprehensively the shock doctor's beliefs now dominate our world, and how this domination has been achieved. Raking in billions out of the tsunami, plundering Russia, exploiting Iraq, this is a chilling tale of how few are making a killing while more are getting killed. It's a really good book. And finally, the book from the past that I read, that I really enjoyed, when I was obsessed with tea, For All the Tea in China, which is all about the tea trade. It's all about Robert Fortune, who was a Scottish gardener, botanist, plant hunter and industrial spy. In 1848, the East India Company engaged him to make a clandestine trip into the interior of China, a territory forbidden to foreigners, to steal the closely guarded secrets of tea. As I said in the previous video, I was very, very interested in tea, and I know all the different types of tea, how it's made, cultivated. That was kind of a little mini special interest that became quite intense for a while. No longer such an intense interest. It's funny because all my interests never completely disappear. They're always still there, back in mind. You have a massive, they have a massive power over me. They never completely disappear. So I'm going to round up this video now. In a previous video, I might, as I say, carry on, because there are a number of other books I'd like to talk to you that really had an impression on me, and that some of which I've read quite recently. For example, Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse, which is one of my best reads ever. Steppenwolf, highly recommend it. I might talk about that in another video, possibly a little bit about that, because I think it relates quite closely to Asperger's, sense of alienation. So it's a great book, and it's also one of the part of the reason I read it is because I'm very interested in hippies and the counterculture, and it was meant to be a seminal text of the counterculture. One of the seminal texts is quite kind of magic, kind of Alice in Wonderland-y kind of feel to it. So yeah, Steppenwolf. There's a band called Steppenwolf as well, by the way. That took obviously the famous Steppenwolf band from the hippie era. Obviously took their name from the book. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed watching, and obviously please leave a comment below, and also please do subscribe. The more subscribers, the better. And I look forward to speaking to you again next week. So thank you.